Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So, Mario Kart World looks amazing, but I'm sure that's just stating the obvious. I've seen it, you've seen it, and I even glazed it for 2 videos straight, talking about how it will be the best Mario Kart by far. So now, let's be a little more pessimistic for a change. It is true that I am insanely hyped for Mario Kart World, the next game in the Mario Kart franchise. In fact, I think most people are. It's easily looking to be the most massive entry in the series, pretty much reinventing Mario Kart as we know it, while still trying to keep the core aspect of what made these games so fun in the first place. And personally, while I definitely do have concerns, most of them evaporated away with this new trailer, and I have a hard time seeing how it won't be my favorite Mario Kart game. But that doesn't mean I think it will be flawless. It certainly won't be. And as much as I have seen hype surrounding this trailer, I've also seen a lot of skepticism, and that's fine. When a beloved game series changes up as dramatically as this one will, there's a lot of uncertainty about how it's gonna feel. So today, I wanted to go over most, if not every concern that I've seen people have for this game, and then discuss my thoughts on them, if I agree with them, or why I'm not worried about them. So, a bit of a different video from my other ones. And before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos, as it would really help me out and incentive me to create more videos more often. And with all that being said, let's dive in. Alright, so let's get the most obvious concern right out of the way first. The fact that this game is looking to effectively be a reboot of the franchise. Because unlike the previous games, this one takes place in a huge open world, with every single course and probably battle stage too being interconnected with each other through roadways. That's one thing, but more importantly, it fundamentally changes how a lot of this game is gonna work, because take the Grand Prix for example. In the older games, when you were done with one course, you were automatically just taken to the next one, but this time you actually have to drive the way yourself to the next track. And while a lot of these intermission tracks look rather uneventful, it's usually just long straightaways with minimal hazards and fairly long smooth turns. And sometimes it looks interesting enough, but if you take the Mario Bros circuit and Crown City transition for example, yeah, there's not too much happening. And then to make matters more concerning, once you do get to the next course, you only do 1 lap in total, because the pathway leading up to them counts for their own 2 laps as well. And this might definitely feel rather underwhelming, since we'll only be able to experience a fraction of what the tracks will have to offer for each playthrough. But this is something I'm not too worried about, because while we haven't seen this yet, I'm absolutely certain that this game will have a regular versus mode too, where you just pick whichever tracks you want to race on. After all, it's a staple, and in a theoretical versus mode, we probably wouldn't have these transitional laps, and instead we just get teleported immediately to our destination. Because what if the next course you want to play is on the other side of the map? That would definitely be way too long for a transitional lap. And for this reason, I also predict that once we beat each Grand Prix Cup once, we'll also get the option to play them traditionally too, without the transitions. Is this copium? Well, maybe a bit, but I also think Nintendo knows how big of a change this new gameplay is, and that it would be the smartest choice to keep both options. A more agreeable concern to me though, still related to the transitional laps, is that despite their issues, they'll still feel necessary to the experience because the tracks themselves might feel really underwhelming without them. Do I think they will be? No, not necessarily, but admittedly, some of them do look a bit shaky in terms of quality, based on what we've seen. For example, Whistle Stop Summit has pretty much no road hazards or elements at all, besides a sometimes spawning train. And Starview Peak is just a bunch of long, smooth turns, and yet again with no hazards, and even in the retro department, not everything looks great. With Wario Stadium's layout getting rid of half the track, and as much as I hate to say it, but a lot of other remakes seemingly replace dash panel ramps and glider ramps with just normal ones, making them potentially feel more underwhelming. But again, I'm not too concerned about this either, because truthfully, it seems more like the exception rather than the norm. Because aside from those 3 tracks, most of the other ones seem fairly ambitious, with lots of track elements and hazards to make them interesting. I'm not gonna explain every single one of them, I already made a video for that, but yeah, for the most part, I don't think there's much reason to fear for the quality of these tracks. Actually, my biggest Grand Prix worry is that the cups themselves are gonna feel all over the place in terms of progression. Yeah, sure, all the tracks in a cup are geographically close to each other, but the difficulty in scaling seems to be all over the place, because based on what we know, there's what? Moo Moo Meadows, Choco Mountain, and Toad's Factory in the f***ing Lightning Cup. And that's not the worst of it, there's also SNES Mario Circuit in the Special Cup! Did they not learn anything from Mario Kart DS and Wii? Seriously, the fact that the Lightning and Special Cups might be the most underwhelming ones is actually sad. But this is also a fairly trivial nitpick. That's about it when it comes to Grand Prix worries though. But when it comes to the core gameplay, there are understandably a lot of worries there too, because a lot of the major gimmicks in the previous games are just gone. Gliding, underwater driving, anti-gravity, they disappeared and ceased to exist. Although, actually, I'm completely fine with this. Gliding was fun, but the newly replacing airplane mode seems to be basically that, but with a lot more control and dexterity over the kart. So while it doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing, gameplay-wise, I think it's gonna be a clear improvement. Underwater driving is a bit more of a sad loss, but at worst, it just means we're not gonna have any underwater themed tracks. Which, I mean, it's fine. I like underwater tracks, but there are more track themes than that in the world. So I'll be happy to see other themes get courses instead. And anti-gravity was honestly not handled that interestingly in 8 Deluxe anyways, in my opinion. Sure, the idea was cool, driving on the walls and ceilings, but most of the time, the gimmick was just slapped on because it didn't have any better idea for its use. Whether it was making a useless side road, or they had that repetitive cliche where they just put 2 parallel paths next to each other halfway through, with no elements at all on them. And it got old pretty fast. In either case, you can make good Mario Kart tracks without anti-gravity anyways. In contrast, I think the new mechanics introduced in Mario Kart World seem a lot more engaging for the gameplay as a whole. There's grinding on guardrails for a speed boost, for example, and you can even jump up on walls and wall kick between them for even more speed boosts. My only concern for them is that they might be a little technical to pull off, but considering this is Mario Kart, I don't think they're gonna make the main gameplay gimmick of it be almost inaccessible to children. Speaking of children, the babies are back. Now, when it comes to the actual character roster, I'm both super excited on one hand, but also a little on the edge. And it seems that a lot of people I talk to feel the same. Because on one hand, I love how wacky so many of these choices are. I'm not really much of a fan myself of generic enemies or characters with no arms being playable, but I still gotta respect that they went all out with some of these choices. I mean, Moo Moo, Coin Coffer, and Conch-Door? Who thought of that? It's so random, but that's why I love them. But at the same time, it also seems like a lot of veterans got the shaft in place for them, such as PD Piranha, Kamek, King Bob-omb, Poochie, or how about every Kong aside from DK? See, as much as I love these guys, it would also be unfair if actual characters didn't get in because of them, who in my opinion, still have a higher priority. However, this is definitely something that I'm just expecting we'll see more of in the upcoming Direct next week. Sure, you might say that 50 characters is already an unusually high amount, and that it's unlikely we'll get more, but a lot of the characters we do have are already regular hazards on the tracks, like Cataquacks. And well, for starters, there's still several of them that haven't been confirmed playable yet, such as Boom Boom, Paratroopers, Bulbers, Bullies, Sumo Bros, Sledge Bros, and I don't know, maybe Toku Toku and Batodon too. So if they're gonna go all out on the roster, maybe we can get those too. In fact, maybe it could even be a selling point that you can drive as literally anything in this game. Or well, okay, maybe that is expecting too much, but I'm still certain that we'll get at least a few more characters. So yeah. Once again, I'm actually more nitpicky about something else in this department, namely the character select menu, because for some reason, not every character is visible at once, so you're gonna be having to scroll a lot to see everyone who's in, which can get really annoying quite fast if you're struggling with which character you want to pick, especially because it seems that alternate costumes will share the same menu too. But you know what, hopefully this is just for the demo, at least I hope so. You want to know something I'm actually really concerned about though? The seeming lack of battle mode. Now yes, this could definitely just be something they're hiding from us, for now. I wouldn't rule that out, but considering how much of an afterthought battle mode has been in recent years, I think there are reasons to be worried about this. Because if this game is open world, that means we should be able to see where all the battle stages will be, but based on the map, the only stages that might have been spotted are Big Donut and Twomp Desert. And that's just 2 in total, and at least in my opinion, some of the most boring choices they could have picked, seeing as they're just big circles. And for what it's worth, they might not even be used for battle, they could also just be references you drive through to get to the next course in Grand Prix. After all, that's how Vanilla Lake is treated in the Star Cup, since 2 stages is definitely not enough to fill out 1 battle mode. On one hand, maybe the map we saw in the trailers is just a beta version for all the hands-on experiences, and we'll see a more developed one in the Direct next week, but at the same time, would they really create a whole map exclusively for the demo? I feel like that's more work than it's worth, and I don't really see how they could implement any other battle stages into this either, unless they're just gonna use existing racetracks for them, and that's a whole other can of worms to be worried about too. Admittedly, I shouldn't care too much about this though. As much as I love battle mode personally, I'm still sure Mario Kart World can be the best Mario Kart game without it, since it's already looking to have more content than any other game in the series, with the new knockback tour and free roaming modes. And while they look great from what we saw in the Treehouse gameplays, especially since free roam even seems to have its own mission structure. Actually, my biggest concern for the game, as well as most other people's it seems, is a bit cliche, but you know what, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The price is absolutely awful. So awful that they didn't even show it in the actual Switch 2 Direct. I understand that prices were inevitably gonna get higher with Switch 2 games. Personally, I thought $60 was already a little high for Switch 1 titles, especially the lazy HD remasters, but admittedly, I wouldn't be too upset if this game was just $70. Sure, it would be pricey, but it would also be a more natural step up from what we had, and considering this game is looking ambitious, it's a fair equivalent exchange. But my god, $80 for a game, and that's just the digital version. The physical edition is gonna go up to $90, at least in Europe. Oh, what's that you say? Some retailers are selling it for lower in spite of that? Well, good for everyone who's lucky. I can't imagine people in the United States are gonna be lucky though, due to the newly introduced tariffs on Japan. And in Sweden, it also seems to be more expensive than usually. Here, Mario Kart is selling for 929 kroner, which is really close to $100, including shipping. And the Switch 2 console? Yeah, that's f***ing 6,490 kroner, which is around $600.50. Why is it so much more pricey here? You know, I actually thought the regular Switch 2 price seemed acceptable, but this, I have no words. Now, will the price have an effect on my enjoyment of the game itself? Obviously not, that's a separate matter. But it does make me concerned about whether or not this game is gonna sell badly because of it, because the vast majority of Mario Kart players are families, and I know for a fact that a lot of people might not be able to afford that, considering the economic state we're all in today. Like, who cares if the previous games were technically more expensive due to inflation, when wages haven't gone up to accommodate that? But I'm the guy who has to get every Mario game. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Honestly, either scenario, whether this game sells well or flops, is kinda terrifying, because it's either gonna set a new standard, or it might lead to a decline in Nintendo games, similar to how it was in the Wii U era. I know most people are probably just gonna get the bundle instead, since it makes the game far less expensive, but still, this is a really appalling business practice, because no amount of content will justify almost $100 spent. Anyways, that's enough Albert Boris politics for one video. And that's also about all of the concerns I have regarding Mario Kart World. I usually don't like making negative videos, so I was initially hesitant about putting this one out. I mean, for me, I hate seeing Doom posting titles like this personally, but hopefully you all enjoyed watching this video. But what are your concerns for Mario Kart World? Do you agree with me or not? Like and subscribe if you had fun watching this video, and stay tuned as I make videos on everything related to Mario. And follow me on my Discord server, Greenpipe City, as well as on Patreon and Twitter for more updates, and I'll see you all soon. Until next time.